A Lady's Maid by Sarah Gailey. Part 2. Inside Albert's Brain. It was Ada who answered Nadia's bell, and it was Albert who answered Stephen's. Albert the chauffeur should have been sitting with Beatrice. It was technically his fault that she was so, ill. But he had to work, and besides, he didn't really like Beatrice anymore. She was always angry with him, always sniping, always after him to get married, as if that had anything to do with anything. She'd been grousing at him all day, even after he'd gone and found the medicine she'd wanted. So he'd told her he couldn't get away from work, and Marcus the butler had gone to sit with Beatrice. Meanwhile, Albert sat around in the kitchen flirting with Ada, avoiding Mrs. Patterson's sharp eye. But then, while Mrs. Patterson was away, the bell rang for Miss Nadia, and Ada went up to answer it. And then another bell rang, and there was nobody but Albert in the kitchen, so up Albert went. He helped the sodden Mr. Vanderbilt out of his chair. The man kept talking about oysters and legs and Miss Nadia, and into the smoking parlor. Albert lit Mr. Vanderbilt's cigar and nodded for a while as the older man rambled about oyster meat. "It's so very gray, you see, just like Isaac's heart, and, I say, was that a scream from upstairs? Go on and see that everything's all right. Hup, and bring back some more brandy with you." Albert was, with great relief, just turning to leave, when the doors opened and Miss Nadia walked in, wheezing. Mr. Vanderbilt stood a little too quickly. He caught himself on the back of his chair, steadied himself, and made an elaborate bow to Miss Nadia. "What are you doing in here, my love? Surely you aren't supposed to be in the smoking parlor? It's no place for a lovely pearl like yourself." Miss Nadia picked her way over to a chaise and sat, avoiding Mr. Vanderbilt's glassy eyes. "Nonsense, Stephen. I sit in here with Isaac frequently." Mr. Vanderbilt fell back into his chair, legs splayed. His Bostonian slur was even thicker than usual. "It's odd. Isn't it odd, Albert, that she doesn't call him father or papa? I thought that's what pearls are supposed to call their oysters, isn't it?" Albert kept his gaze fixed on the mantel of the fireplace, with no idea of how to respond. Miss Nadia came to his rescue. "Stephen, you're making Albert uncomfortable. Albert, you may leave." Miss Nadia favored Albert with a smile, and he bravely returned it before fleeing the room. Inside Isaac's Brain. As Ada hyperventilated, Isaac Cornett lay unconscious in the washtub. The ice under him cracked as it melted. The ice came from the ice maker he'd invented to solve Nadia's overheating problem. She'd been designed to walk around in flowing empire-waisted dresses, not in corsets and petticoats and hoops. He couldn't have anticipated the way that fashion had changed since the design of the first Nadia model had been finalized. But he couldn't have installed an extra fan without broadening her hips, and that simply wouldn't do. Instead, he'd invented an ice maker and ordered Beatrice to keep the tub filled with ice at all times and to help Nadia into the tub whenever she started feeling faint. It was not a permanent solution, but it had done the trick so far. Isaac lay unconscious on the ice, and blood oozed from his head. Usually, when Isaac slept, he dreamed of Nadia in a gauzy, romantic gown, her hair in cascading curls, sitting at his feet and gazing up at him adoringly. He'd wanted her to acclimate to society life before installing the 010.wife.prt% firmware update. He needed her to acclimate and to understand the rules so she could guide him through the complexities of the social scene. He was tired of being alone, but he'd been out of the loop for so long, he didn't know the right people anymore. He'd become a wealthy old eccentric, invited to dinners only because of who his father had been, and it hurt. And so he'd been happy to wait, content to dream. He had waited for 50 years while he invented the perfect woman to warm his bed and his heart, to bring friendship into his life again. He had then been content to wait another 6 months, until the end of the London season, when, he'd thought, they could move to Philadelphia or Boston, away from the people who assumed she was his daughter, or his ward, or his niece. People he'd had to lie to for purposes of propriety. He'd been happy to wait until after that move to make her his wife. But she hadn't waited for him. Isaac Cornett had lived his life in intellectual solitude, surrounded by inventions that didn't appreciate him. He'd lived a life of quiet genius, taking his meals alone in his laboratory so as not to interrupt his work. He died, goosebumped and alone, in a washtub filled with ice he'd made for the companion he'd booted up just 6 months before, even as his best invention tidied herself and went back down to dinner. Downstairs in the parlor, Nadia felt faint. She'd had to move her chaise closer to the fireplace because Stephen kept kicking it for emphasis, and she felt like the heat was smothering her. Something had cracked in her chassis when Ada cinched her corset. Her chest let out a high whistle as she sighed. She'd have to ask Isaac to fix it later. And you see, in this metaphor, you're the diamond. You're the diamond in the pearl. Nadia had never seen Stephen drunk before. Neither had she been in a room alone with him before, not even when he'd proposed to her at last week's picnic. Now that she thought about it, she realized she'd really only gotten engaged to him because he'd asked, and because she had an idea that she was supposed to say yes. His face was very red, almost the color that Isaac's had been when Nadia announced the engagement, and he kept going on and on about some epiphany he'd had while she'd been upstairs. She was having a hard time following him, and not just because he'd begun slurring his way through another nonsensical metaphor. She was distracted by a troubling thought. And the diamond, oh, pardon me, dear. I hate to belch in front of a lady. The meat of the oyster is… Stephen, where is your button? Stephen stopped mid-sentence, and the few parts of his face not already flushed quickly pinkened. My button, darling? Yes, your button. Where is it? Stephen stammered, staring into his brandy snifter. I'm not sure that's entirely… I mean to say… Nadia snapped her folding fan open and fluttered it near her face, hoping to cool off a bit. The too-warm room was beginning to blur at the edges. Oh, pish-tosh, Stephen. Just show me if you can't tell me. She stood and took a step toward Stephen, who leapt from his chair and stumbled over the footstool, spilling brandy all down his front. He looked down in bemusement and began brushing at his shirt front with a handkerchief, muttering about propriety. Nadia froze, staring at his mole-covered, flaking scalp, clearly visible through his thinning hair. But something more than just hair was missing. Stephen, do you not have an off button? Stephen stared at her, brows knit in incomprehension. A what? An off button, like this one. Nadia tilted her head and parted her hair to show him the red button that protruded from her skull, directly on top of her head. Stephen vomited brandy all over the overstuffed chair he'd been sitting in. Oh no, oh, Stephen. Nadia ran to him. What's wrong with you? Was it the oysters? She reached for him, but he stumbled back, away from her touch. What's wrong, Stephen? A high-pitched whine undercut her words. She could barely catch her breath. She was so hot. She tried to take a deep breath, to get her auxiliary fans going, but Ada had laced her corset far too tightly, and she couldn't ventilate. She looked up at Stephen, at his slack jaw and his flushed cheeks. He was so red. Stephen, is there blood inside your head? Not just in your tanks? Does everyone have blood inside their heads? Stephen fainted. Thank you for listening to Part 2 of The Lady's Maid by Sarah Gailey. Stay tuned for Part 3 as we continue this intriguing journey. In the meantime, please like, share, and subscribe to Voice Voyages. Your support is highly appreciated.